Next, I will be introducing the moderator of our panelist discussion, Dr. Sonia Doi. Dr. Doi is president of 3 separate organizations, the Allan Kardec Spiritist Society of Maryland, the U.S. Spiritist Medical Association, and also the International Spiritist Medical Association. Dr. Doi graduated in medicine from the University of São Paulo, specializing in endocrinology. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Doi.
Hello, good afternoon. Hey, good. And good afternoon to those who are following with us online. Continuing with our program, I am really delighted to open this panel discussion on the free talks presented today. So let's invite the speakers to occupy the seats. Leah Gouveia, Leonardo Vieira, please, and Cynthia Fabretti. I'm sorry, may I continue to call you by the first name? Okay, so I'm Sonia, okay? So first and foremost, I want to congratulate the speakers for the enlightening presentation. Wonderful, really outstanding presentation. For this session, we encourage you to raise questions. We are aware that the speakers had very limited time for their presentations, and there is still room to expand on these topics. So don't be shy. Your questions are always valuable so that they can help in clarifying relevant points that the speakers did not have enough time to elaborate further. To ask questions, I would ask you to please raise your hands. And also, when you are asking questions, please state your name and the name of the speaker you want to address the question to. So when you raise your hands to ask questions, some of our volunteers will hand a microphone to you. Well, we heard these wonderful talks today. Leah told us about the self-discovery. She encouraged us to go deep inside and look inside of ourselves. And we are not going so deep to just find the bad things that we hide there. We are also reminded to look at the gifts that we have, but the gifts that we can use in order to help others. So that's a good incentive that, we can go deep. Leo told us about the powers of the spirit, the thought and the will. The thought can never stop. We're always thinking. As he told us, we cannot stop thinking, even when we discarnate. That's how the spirits talk to each other, right? By thinking, thoughts. But the will need some work. We need effort. Will needs our action. So we need to do some work on there if we want to make our thoughts to become a reality. And Cynthia just told us about the moral transformation, and she told us that it's a process. It's a journey. So that means we cannot just do one day and done with it, right? We always have to, it's something that we have to revisit for as long as we're here. So we have a lot to learn. And because I am the moderator, I have the privilege to ask the first questions. I'm just kidding. Anyone ready for a question? I prefer that. So if you already have a question, I put mine last.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Alba Morales from the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. I'm not sure who I'm going to ask this question because all of you touched about the will, specifically Leo. So we understand Joanna De Angelis is telling us if your will is weak, it's because you are not exercising it. And in theory and in paper, it sounds okay, makes sense. But when we are in front of that plate full of cookies, the will really start weakened. It's like so I don't know if you have like practical tools for us to strengthen our will in different situations. Let's call it temptations. How to strengthen our will.
The first thought I have, there is a will, there is a way, right? It's a saying. I think of course, Leo here can say more about that, but it's just that I want to share the saying that came to mind. And I think it's to have a motivation and a purpose. When you have something that you truly believe, you have something in mind, you need to put an effort, have this self-discipline, and work hard, and do not give up. I think you have to be a little bit hard-headed or persistent in order to achieve what you want to accomplish. But I leave my older brother here to talk more about that.
She called me old. Thank you.
The ladies first.
Such a I was thinking that we start small, how it's like, I think even in that chapter that you brought, Joanna De Angelis makes an analogy of the muscle, isn't it? That to have strong muscles, you have to exercise, and it's not just one time, it's many times, and every time you add more weight, if you are doing weightlifting. The will, I think it is the practical way of approaching it, because I understand very well what you're saying, is to make small practices, little things, so that you will every day increase, build upon that. And then you will notice that you have the strength that you have, the determination that you have, what it takes to tackle things that are more difficult. The most interesting thing I thought about will that you brought up, I never heard that before, was that it's an energy. It's the thought that becomes an energy, probably because it's the action. But start small, and build up.
Thank you. I'll share a story that I heard many, many years ago. One of our friends actually told us that one of his friends was avoiding a lot of the work meetings that they had. And this friend of ours came to his friend and said, look, why are you not attending to these meetings? why you're not coming to the meetings and that we have. It's important, it's nice to, have the gathering and whatnot. And then the friends turn to him and say, look, I don't like to go because there's food. And whenever I'm near food, I can't stop myself. So it was a huge learning curve for this friend, because he then realized that this idea, and thank you for pointing out the beautiful chocolate cookies, right, is not something that's going to happen now. Perhaps we became aware of it today, but this is something that needs to be done yesterday. There's no way that we're going to get that if we didn't think about it, if we didn't materialize that thought of perhaps we're in a gathering that there will be coffee. Many Brazilians will have to drink coffee, right? There will be other goodies as well that we're going to like, and I will resist. If there's no premeditated thought towards such a thing, guess what? When you're near, the temptation will win us, right? So this idea starts yesterday. It starts a month ago. We've just learned that to become a behavior, it takes a long time. So we have to prepare ourselves. Where am I going? And this connects with the thought. What am I going to encounter when I go to this location today, right? What am I going to encounter tomorrow at work, right? And so on and so forth. So I think the idea that we need to bring to ourselves is that when we're dealing with temptations is for us to analyze what possibly can happen. That's not to say that we're going to live in a state of alert. Oh my God, this is going to happen. No, but at least connect with yourself. I like sugar. I like cookies, right? So what can I do to minimize my experiences with sugar, with the cookies? And it's hard, right? I'll finalize with one thing. I once also came in contact with someone who was addicted to drugs. And the analogy that this person gave me was exactly it. Imagine yourself in front of a beautiful cake, whatever cake you like, and I start thinking about the cake. That's exactly the same thing when you're dealing with drugs. And that to me is not out of my idea of when people are dealing with drugs. But we have control. Spiritism that tells us that we have control of it, right? We see Joanna de Angelis. It may be weak at first, but we have to keep trying. So it starts yesterday. It starts months ago, right? For us to get to a gathering like this and look at the cookie and say, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. I'll have one, right? But that will be my quota of the day of sugar and whatever that is in life. It's not only sugar, but anything that debilitates us morally and for sure physically. I hope that helps.
Let me just clarify why I call him older brother. It's not biologically speaking, it's because he has more knowledge and more experience, more maturity than myself, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers. Next question. We are open. Yes, please.
Okay. Michelle Soto from KSS. Actually, Leo, I don't have a question. I have an answer. I am here because I want to. When you asked, why are you here? Because I wanted to. I had so many things going on in my life right now, just from the moving back from overseas, and I made sure to be here because I wanted to. So thank you for your lectures.
Thank you.
Who is next? Please, warm up. Okay. I have done my, yeah?
Sylvie Porphyre with Spiritist Society of North Beach. So I have a question or an opening for the panel. So we are learning about moral transformation, and the question, or more the broader approach, would be, So we have victories, right? And then we have setbacks, and from victories to setback, we finally progress. When you're in a setback situation, sometimes to be able to come out of it, you need to apply self-forgiveness. I'd like to open up to ask you if you could talk to us a little bit about self-forgiveness for us to reset and be able to restart the process.
Who wants to start?
Thank you for the question. One thing that I think I didn't speak of is that we need to be kind to ourselves in this process. You know, it's easy to be kind. I'm sorry.
Speak a little louder,
Okay.
please.
One thing that I don't think I mentioned during my presentation was that we need to be kind to ourselves. We are not perfect. We are not perfect. So we will make many mistakes. There is something, I don't know who said that making mistakes, you know, by making mistakes, we learn. By nailing, you know, whatever we are aiming to, by doing it right, we progress. So I think it is easy to forgive if we think that it is a journey, that we are not perfect. No one is. And that we have to be kind towards others, but we have to be kind to ourselves too. And forgiveness is being kind to ourselves. That's how I see it.
I think it's the idea of self-indulgence. And Joanna de Angelis tells us a lot about guilty and how guilty can be detrimental to us. So I think we need to be careful and be humble to say that we are in a journey. We need time and effort to grow, you know, so just accept where you are now and keep working to transform, but without, you know, punishing yourself. You know, we cannot transform and become better, you know, from a moment to another. And I even mentioned during my talk, if I have been committing the same mistakes over and over again through multiple lives, I cannot simply change now because I created an automatism, you know, but I can start doing small exercises, you know, to change that. And self-compassion, self-indulgence, self-love, it's very important, I think.
I think the idea of time, obviously, you know, bringing the past lives into this process is super important, right? One thing that I would like to add is we often think that feeling guilty is the worst feeling ever, and it is. It can be very detrimental to us if we get stuck in that same thought, same feeling. But if we acknowledge that that is the first step for it to snap out of that problem, is the most liberating thing ever. For us to come and free ourselves to say, I really dropped the ball. I really messed up. It's a beautiful thing. That often in this world where we live right now, we don't see it happening. And to stay in that thought and to marinate in terms of what can I do now, right? So we go with the first step, which is, you know, to repent. Look, I made a mistake, right? And then we suffer, right? That is the second level, the second step, which is to expiate that difficulty that we're going through, right? Or that we create for ourselves. And then there's the third one that we learn with Spiritism as well, right? Is to make right, to do the right things, to ask for a new beginning, right? That often we're so stuck again, so stubborn on what happened that we don't even look in the future, right? Again, it's that thought, right? And this is a behavior. This is something that takes time, as we talked about earlier today. But just that feeling to say, oh, I feel so bad. There are people in the world that they're doing wrong things. I'm not going to say malicious, right? But they don't feel that. To them, it's a normal thing. We also heard the idea of what we think it's wrong now, some other places the world, they still think it's okay, right? And it's the same thing with our thoughts, right? And I would add one more element here. We're not alone. The more we think that way, the more we act that way, we attract others that are just like us, right? They're thinking, vibrating the same way. So be kind to that thought. Be kind so much so that it will lead you to the next step, which is to make amends with yourself and say, you know what? I'm in an evolutionary path here. I deserve this moment of transition as well. So.
Compliment. I was just thinking while you're saying that, while you're talking, a thought came to my mind. First about guilt, that we need to think that at least if we feel guilt or if we feel the need for forgiveness, at least we are at that point that we recognize that, we did something wrong. But guilt, as Leo said, it puts you down, doesn't really help. But it's good to feel sometimes of remorse, I would say, because I think we should not feel guilty unless we wanted to commit that, the mistake. If it was on purpose. If it was not on purpose, yes, it was a mistake. We recognize, we feel bad about it. We should feel responsible for that action, but not guilt, because guilt doesn't make us act towards a resolution, to ask forgiveness or to ask, I'm sorry, I did something wrong. And the same thing, it's with us. We need to be able to look and say, okay, I did this, it was wrong. I didn't intend to do. So what can I do? Be responsible. What can I do to make it better, to not repeat, to this and that? And it's a way to forgive also ourselves, because we are on this path. We are on this evolutionary journey. Still we live in a planet of, how do we say it? Say
Trials and expiation.
Trials and expiation. Thank you. So just a compliment.
Can I do one more thought? And I think this is the beauty of Spiritism for me, the concept of multiple lives. We are not going to solve everything in one lifetime. But when we put into perspective, we have eternity. So every new lifetime, we are going to have new experiences. We are going to get rid of all the bad habits. We are going to exercise and acquire new ones. So I think we need to be patient with ourselves, indulgent with ourselves. It's not simply accept our mistakes, but really accept our current stage of evolution and keep working to transform little by little. And look, imagine let's think about that together. Let's say I reach my end of life, I just have few hours, and I just realize I just made mistakes my entire life over and over again. But imagine the concept, the freedom that it doesn't matter. You did not waste your time because you learned it. So now you recognize you made mistakes, and you are going to have new chances, new opportunities to start over again in the spiritual life, or coming back, reincarnating, in a new physical body, to be educated again, to receive new impressions. So I think when you put into perspective, it makes much more sense. Anyone to add? No? Next. We hope
Great.
we answered.
Great comments. Next question.
So if we have a question after, if maybe you want to do yours. And I had a question myself whenever, you have an opening like this. Ask something myself, but you can go ahead and do yours now.
Okay. So that comes from Leah's presentation, but I will ask any of you to. So Leah first made the comparison to our moral transformation with all the metamorphoses from the larvae to the butterfly, going through the cocoon and so forth, so on. Then she compared us to an onion with several layers to peel off. So my question is, the older we get, the more layers we get, I believe, more work to go down deep inside. So that means if we start early enough in life, are we done early?
Not necessarily.
Too bad.
No. I think it's just to understand our level of complexity. Many times we say, and Paul says that, right? He said that the good I want to do, I cannot do. And the mistakes I don't want to do, I keep doing. Why? Because his current ego or personality already knows, his conscience already knows what to do, what he should be doing, what we should be doing, but we still are not able to. Why? Because of the past behavior, the automatisms that we have. So first step is to, and Cynthia covered that, is awareness, right? First, we need to become aware, or we need to recognize we made a mistake. After, we need to work on that. And to work, it takes time. It takes effort. It's not an easy process. You need to be compassionate, be forgiving to yourself, but keep working intensely to educate yourself in order to improve. And this process, this journey, we cannot do alone, even though it's individual, it's personal, we cannot change others, we need to change ourselves. We can help one another because we can share our experiences, and there are so many ways, as we discovered a little bit, how to transform ourselves. It's self-observation, self-analysis. You recognize and then you start acting on it little by little. Whatever you cannot accomplish now, you're going to accomplish in the future. But look yourself as an immortal spirit. If you look eternity, you have plenty of time, okay? But if you just look one lifetime, it's not possible. It's not possible. And no one is asked to become a saint or angel. We are still trying to become a human being. And even that, we are still struggling. Okay, so let's just be a little bit better every day. Make efforts, right?
I'd just like to add, as we're thinking about this, as we're starting this journey through moral transformation, to managing our thoughts, our will and whatever, we come to a conclusion that we are our own worst enemy, right? And one of the stigmas about therapy, for example, is that I'm afraid to get to know myself, because the more we know ourselves, guess what? The more we'll find out that, look, I have not only this trouble, but I have other issues as well within. And that can be certainly scary, but it's rewarding, right? The more you find out, the more you get to know yourself, the better we'll be prepared and all. But we defeat ourselves, we sabotage ourselves before we even start, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we ought to at least try and give ourselves the time to start this journey. Like she said, it's not going to stop here. It's not going to happen. We're not going to find out about ourselves or get to know ourselves tomorrow, but this journey will certainly guide us to a better tomorrow, right? And I think that when we start to add the future into all this, things become easier because we're projecting ourselves a better version of ourselves tomorrow, once we know that there will be a tomorrow.
First, I would like to say that I love the idea of the onion. Peel the onion. It's a very good analogy. I was thinking about evolution. It's in spiral, we are going upwards. But so we learn something here. Let's say we learn about love, what we can understand about love now. And then as we evolve, progress, we will come back to that and we will learn another level of understanding of love. And then we continue our journey, evolutionary journey, and we will stop again, but we will learn another. So it's not like, let's say I want to be kind. But as I evolved, I will be understanding more and more about what kind is, how to be kind. So it's an ongoing process. And there is that idea that the evolutionary, the evolution of the spirit is from atom to archangel. So, and this is just what we can understand, because there is more after that. So that idea that we will never progress, I would say it's all infinitum. There will always be something about a virtue that we can learn and refine and, acquire, and then another round around the block.
Another image that I have in mind, it's about wounds. So let's say we have wounds in our skin or in our soul. Just closing our eyes to this wound is not going to, to heal. So we need to really treat this wound. We need to clean. We need to give the proper care so then it can be healed. So of course it's difficult. We many times we do not want to face our fears, our traumas, but we do need to if we want to progress. In our stage of evolution, it is just normal that we have so many traumas, so many issues to be addressed. So we cannot be afraid. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to look for psychotherapy, for all kinds of tools that can help you, But just ignoring it is going to make it worse because it's not going to be healed. Okay?
Thank you. Great answers.
I want to ask if you can speak a little bit more about the role of player in self-discovery, thought, and moral transformation. I'm Sabrina from AKSS. The question is the role of player in each of your topics. So self-discovery with our thoughts and moral transformation.
I can start just because I remember the words from St. Augustine, who said that when we examine our daily activities, we should pray, to ask for help, to ask our guardian angel, to ask our Creator to enlighten us to help us overcome our temptations or our imperfections. So prayer is one of the tools, very important tools that can help us, really raise ourselves above this material life and ask for strength, ask for courage, And the same way we can use for self-knowledge, we can use, for the other aspects, which I pass on so they can complement here.
One thing that I would like to add is the idea of nothing start out of nothing, right? There is always a thought. There is, as we mentioned, there is always a action towards that, that driving force towards that action. So it materializes either in the physical realm as we can see it, or perhaps in the realms of fluids, right? An intention, a feeling, whatnot. So the moment that we start praying, we start to visualize the end point, right? Where we want to get to, right? So why is it important? Just that, just the fact that you disconnect, number one, from that negative thought that perhaps you had, or that moment that you're going through, and you start visualizing yourself and ask our mentors, ask Jesus, God, whatever we are connecting with, that moment of realization that we're connecting with our higher self, we'll start to visualize. We'll start to say, this is where I want to be. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens is, even during our prayer, we're still connecting with the negative thought, and we're still connected with the other beings that are thinking and vibrating like us, right? And they hijack that moment from us, right? That's why the will to maintain in one thought, to maintain in one vibration is extremely important in this matter. I used to also question, in a positive way, I promise, a lot of the mantras that we hear from certain religions, right? In Christianity as well, Catholicism, we also hear the repetition of certain prayers, right? And I used to question, what is the need for that? And then I realized, look, that is the moment that the person has, or the capability that the person has to detach themselves from what is negative and to bring something new within themselves. And the aid comes, just like she said. St. Augustine is very adamant about this idea that of us connecting with our mentors at the end of the day, right? To really do this analysis of ask. But what I would like to ask everyone, since you mentioned, is that during a moment of prayer, do not let anybody hijack that moment from you, right? Really propose to yourself, ask yourself, what is the end point? Where do I want to be? And visualize yourself there, right? We have all the beautiful books, right, that are sold by many great authors, and they do wonders, right? And we have the explanation, the reasoning behind why is it so with Spiritism, and we Spiritists without ourselves and without the process, right? So I think it's an amazing question, because it is through prayer that we will start that thought, and hopefully with our will, we will start to do whatever we have to do to change ourselves. Thank you.
And I would say that the thought is the way we communicate, with the higher spiritual realm, with God, with Jesus. St. Augustine said that. St. Francis of Assisi also said, start and end your day with a prayer. And when we pray, we ask, or whatever usually we pray to ask things, never to say thank you. But, we pray to ask God. And, but we need to receive the answer, at least the inspiration. We need to put ourselves in a state, through thought, to calmness, to meditation, whatever, to receive the inspiration. It's not just to ask. We need to be receptive. The other thought is, asking you shall receive. Jesus said that. And yes, we can ask help with our own journey on the moral transformation. I suggest let's put it in a project, as a project mode. So you choose something that you feel you want to improve, and we can ask help. We can ask help, and then the help, the response will come in different ways. It is a book, it is a friend, it is a film, it is a talk. It will come. So it is true, we ask and we will receive. Yes. I hope it helped.
Any other comment? No? Question, any other question? Yes.
Gabriel Silva with AKSS. Cynthia in her talk was talking about something that just caught my attention related to relative morality. It's a very, like modern talk. We've seen a lot of that in relation to the labor laws and everything else that we have seen change during the last years. So my question, actually, two questions. One of it is, how do we see the ones that actually had behaviors back then? They had a play on history, and they have done great things to ourselves, but there wasn't a good side of it. There wasn't, it's great for nowadays. And since we are evolving as a process, are we to see things like that happen again? Is there going to be some kind of behavior that we have it now that will be seen as something to be ashamed of in the future?
I understand. I understood the first question. Let me answer, then you ask again the second. How do we see what was done? I gave one example. There are horrible things that we did. It was not them, it was us. We have to look and be, it was a different time. We don't know the motivations. We don't know if the people did on purpose or pure ignorance. Who are we to judge? I can judge myself. Others, I need to practice charitable thoughts like indulgent, be tolerant. It's not to say that we are, what's the term? That we agree with what people are doing. But the only person I can change is myself. Even to judge others, remember that passage about to have a speck in one eye, to the plank, and so I think we should look to the past to learn the lessons. But who is not to say that we were the ones doing that? So that is my take on the first question. What is the second?
It has to do with, since nobody is in this process of evolution, so are we to, in the future, to look back and nowadays, and
look at us today.
Shame of something we have done from now on.
Yeah. I think in the future, we will look back and see, oh my God, what those people were doing. What were they thinking? We talked about the evolutionary progress of the evolution being a spiral, up a spiral. We will revisit things and do differently. But I think the most important thing is not just, yes, we will look back and we will see that we were not very good. But we are so much better than before. And I think in the future is very positive. It's a very hopeful thing. We will be better than today. That's how I think I could answer that.
Because we learn about the law of progress. So you keep progressing, and whatever we consider as barbaric in the past is going to be many things that nowadays we consider as normal. People in the future, you think that we are barbaric people as well. So, but we have a mix of different spirits and people incarnating our whole planet. So you can see it's really a great school because we can see the best and the worst all together. It is up to us which, behaviors or side we want to take. So we learn with our mistakes, but we also learn with other people's mistakes, right? So we hope we can do better, because I think the world's still very messy, and there are many things that we still see nowadays that it was normal in the Middle Ages. So some people, some of us didn't evolve very much, so.
I'll quickly add one thing, that in the business economic world, I mean, we'll see that there's a saying, the past predicts the future, right? And I know that the phrase can be, how am I going to say, pessimistic to an extent, and it is, much like we see, for example, the economy goes through cycles, right? We go through the ups and downs, and whatever happens, we're going through now the down, it's going to be up again, and so on and so forth. What I'm trying to say with this is that for sure, we will see us looking back and saying, wow, what was I thinking? What we were thinking, right? As we are doing now. But I also am optimistic in the sense that since we know that the past predicts the future, we'll also then become a society where before it becomes a negative habit, something that is bad, we will stop and say, wait a minute, past predicts the future. So if we continue this road, we will see the negative effects, right? We'll become more aware in the sense that we've been there before. We don't need to go through this route. Not necessarily we're going to be falling in the same pit, but we will save ourselves from creating new negative things, in our lives. So it is a great question in the sense that it allows us to project ourselves in the future. And again, looking in the future, we're already projecting ourselves in a positive way, that I don't want to do the same mistakes. I don't want to go through the level of guilt that I'm going through now. So in the future, I'll act accordingly so that we don't fall in the cement. I'll be better. Thank you. Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, so let me go to another question. So I understood from your lectures that the moral transformation is something that is individual. It starts with ourselves, our own will to do it. Now, is there any value in trying to help someone else in this journey, especially if a person is not showing any interest to change themselves, or if they have difficulties to understand it? Is there any value on helping or doing something?
Great question. And this is something that I would like to say, I'm not feeling guilty, but that I didn't go in depth with on my talk. In that book that I mentioned, Thought in Life, the third chapter, it's called Cooperation. And Emmanuel is very adamant as well about the idea that we need cooperation. And he, interesting enough, I mean, I just mentioned business. He also mentions that in any organization, we need a cooperation. We cannot, an organization cannot flourish if there's only a status, right? A CEO or a boss or whatnot. If that individual lacks cooperation, guess what? Nobody will follow through, right? So the idea of cooperation, the idea of exemplifying goodness, kindness towards one another, it's a key element, right? In us as well, to be open to follow the examples. Unfortunately, it's not the case on planet Earth, especially when we're, at work, right? We lack that kindness. We lack that, and most of the time we lack the individual being kind to us and say, wait a minute, I've been there, right? So I know your struggle. But Perhaps the individual may not be open to this self-transformation. Perhaps the case is not that they're even going to work for self-transformation. They're there to make money, right? And I'm using work because, Emmanuel, again, brings the idea of an organization. Perhaps the individual is not going to the Spiritist Center to transform themselves. It's actually a gathering. It happens, right? But if we exemplify it, things will change. The matrix will be there. This happens with our kids. This happens with us in family. Not everybody is a Spiritist, right? But what we say, how we conduct ourselves, hopefully will change them, right? So it's not what others will do, but by helping others, we'll help ourselves. And this is not an egotistical way, but it's just the nature of life, right? We see how nature depends on certain elements of nature depends on one another. It's really important for us to pay attention and do the same thing.
Thank you. I understand your question in two folds. One, of course, we should help if we can. But the other is that we cannot help those that don't want to be helped. So if we force, we are violating their will and their right to be wrong. Stuff. Some people don't ask for help because they don't know how. So we have to be more, attuned to, if we want to help, how to approach. But if a person didn't ask for help, doesn't want help, I would say, allow them. It's their journey. They will learn with the experience. But of course, if we should help if we can, be available to help. I think that's
I just want to complement a little bit what Leo was saying about the power of example. We really can inspire others with our own behavior and example for the bad and for the good. People can look at us and say, I don't want to do what she does, or I want to do what she does. And we also see that as human beings, as social beings, we have the power to influence one another to the point that influencers now, it's a profession. Many young kids want to be influencers, but what type of influence can we really give to one another? So I think there is a power, we call the power of one, because individually we really have the power to become better and make people around us better, So we progress individually, but we also progress collectively. And I just want to add on this sense.
something else that I remember as an analogy, like, if you do my homework, will I learn the lesson? There are things that we need to go through. We cannot take away from the person the experience, but we can help them, hold their hands, have a kind word, an understanding word, give them the shoulder, walk with them, but we cannot do the job for them. That's also important when helping.
Wonderful. So now it's the last question, and we have about 10 minutes. So each one of you can elaborate. What do you think is the biggest barrier, the greatest barrier for moral transformation?
One word, pride.
Yes.
It's something that I was not able to cover on my slide, which I call negative pride. Because why separate that? Because there is the positive pride, which is to, self-worth, to really be proud of your accomplishments, of doing something good, of perfecting yourself. But the negative pride is when I think I know better than you, that there is only my way or no way, when I feel I am superior to you. So this is the negative pride, when I'm not able to see each other with equality, when I do not respect diversity, when I want to impose my ways of doing things. So this is the negative pride. And if you are proud, you cannot really be humble, right? To learn something new, or even recognize that you need to change. Because if you think you are perfect, you are very good, you are the best, so why you are going to change, right? And another one, selfishness. When I just do everything for myself. It's not about thinking about yourself, but thinking less about yourself. It's okay to take care of yourself, fulfill your needs, but you have to also, share your gifts. You cannot just keep everything for you. Whatever it's exceeding for you, it's missing to other people. And there are things we cannot use in a lifetime that we accumulate. So we need to ask ourselves why we have this need to attach ourselves, why we need this false idea of security, why we are so afraid that we are going to have our basic needs covered, So a lot of reflections for us here today.
I have nothing to add. This was great. Thank you.
I heard once a very funny description of what being selfish means. It is to think about me, myself, and I. I don't only think in these terms, me, myself, and I. The others, maybe.
Any other inspirational thought that you want to leave with us?
Not really much to add, and I think that what I'm certain that I would like to leave with this. I think this was an amazing moment for me in terms of thinking about thought, will, and our powers, right? Behaviors, and when we talk about being through this transformative moments of our lives, and it happens every day. It happens every moment of our lives. We live in society. We're inserted in a cell of society, which is family, right? But do not doubt our powers. Do not doubt our transformation that we have to go through. The worst thing is when we allow ourselves to become a product of the environment, right? And we are, naturally we are, but in the sense that we stop our evolutionary path. And sometimes it can become actually an excuse to say, well, I'm not doing this because I have to take care of my kids. I have to take care of my family. All of us have to do that at one point or the other. But let's not forget that we are in this journey. We're here today because we want to do, right? Because we want to be here. However, there is a greater purpose. We have a greater purpose. We have the capability to control our thoughts, to control our will, to develop this transformation that we're going through. We're going through the cocoon, right? And to become a beautiful butterfly. And that is the thought that I would like to leave with you. And we mentioned here St. Augustine, and one of the things that St. Augustine said at the end of his explanation in terms of doing this self-assessment every single day is to remind ourselves that there is a tomorrow, right? And once we acknowledge that there is a tomorrow, we start to create a better version of ourselves, because we don't want to be, we aspire to be good individuals, as she said, right? We aspire to be someone better. What lacks sometimes is to even think about it, let alone the will, right? So think about this proposal of how can I be a better person tomorrow than I am today, right? How can I be a better person today than I was tomorrow? And if we do that before we go to bed and when we wake up as well, chances are when we get in front of the cookie table, guess what? We're going to say no, or maybe just have one instead of 2, 3, right? So we'll be better prepared. We'll be better attuned with our higher selves and our mentors to become someone better. That's what I would like to leave with you. Thank you.
So a round of applause to these outstanding speakers for their inspirational talks. Thank you so very much. It was great, really great.